Cristiano Ronaldo earned the respect of his teammates enough to be a captain going into his junior season, and Jake Garcia was the quarterback taking over the program. With these two working in tandem, it was tough to find a more explosive team in the country. Ronaldo wasn't known for his prowess in the running game, but he was an incredible receiving back. And even though Jake Garcia was a backup last season, he got some valuable playing experience in big-time games, including winning the ACC championship for Miami. But if he sets Ronaldo up one more time like that, he might get smacked. After Miami started last season with a 3-4 record, they would win 7 straight games, including the Orange Bowl against Ohio State. So it felt like this team was primed to make a national championship push, even with Jake Garcia at quarterback. And after easily taking care of business against Toledo, Miami had to prepare to take on Nebraska, a tough team. This was a home and away series, and last season this game was played at Nebraska, where Miami won the game. And now with home field advantage, you would think that Miami would blow Nebraska out the water. But after Miami scored this touchdown on the screen pass to Ronaldo, they would miss the extra point, and Nebraska would go down and answer with a touchdown, but they wouldn't miss theirs. With just a few seconds left in the half, Miami would retake the lead with this Ronaldo touchdown, but Nebraska came back in the second half to retake the lead again. This was a back and forth game, and in the fourth quarter, it wasn't looking too pretty for Miami as they were down by 4 and needed a touchdown to win this game. Ronaldo would put the team on his back and single-handedly bring them down to the 1-yard line, but it would come at a cost because he would get hurt on this play. Miami would punch in the go-ahead touchdown, but Ronaldo was questionable with a rib contusion for next week's game. After being questionable all week with a rib injury, Ronaldo would start this game anyways against Florida Atlantic, who was a top 25 opponent. But hits like these directly to the ribs definitely had him reconsidering. And after the starting quarterback Jake Garcia got hurt in the first quarter, Miami had to find different ways to get the ball down the field. Backup quarterback Ja'Cory Brown would come into the game and deliver this absolute strike for the touchdown, but the FAU defense would still hone in on Ronaldo, so they had to continue throwing the ball to take the lead. And after being up by a field goal in the fourth quarter, on 3rd and 10, Miami would run this draw to seal the game away, and Ronaldo for good measure would punch it in. Ja'Cory Brown would be named player of the game, replacing Jake Garcia. After missing almost all of last week's game against FAU, Jake Garcia would be healthy enough to take on Michigan State at home, but they had to ease him back into the offense, and the best way to do that was to give the ball to Ronaldo. This was a low-scoring game in the rain, and Michigan State was doing just enough to stay in this game. That wasn't until Jake Garcia finally shook the rust off, and he would take this quarterback draw for the touchdown and really put this game away. But the nail in the coffin came in the very next possession, as Ronaldo would take this handoff from inside his own 10-yard line and make a bunch of Michigan State defenders look crazy. This was the longest play of Cristiano Ronaldo's career, and he'd be rewarded with a player of the game honors after. Cristiano Ronaldo was a scoring machine against Virginia, and he took off in the first half of this game. This man was more versatile than a crackhead looking for his next hit. I mean, he was willing to do anything out there. That wasn't until Virginia tightened up and would put this touchdown on the board just before the half to keep it to one possession, and in the second half, they would hone in on Ronaldo. I'm talking about really key in on him. They sent his ass to the shadow realm with this hit, and Virginia would recover the fumble. Thankfully, Miami's defense held him to just a field goal, so Miami was still up. Ronaldo needed to try and make up for his earlier mistake and would make this great catch on 3rd and 8, but the offense would stall out near the goal line, and Miami would have to settle for a field goal. Virginia would get forced into a 3-and-out, but Miami was still having trouble, and Ronaldo would get blasted behind the line. And that was the moment he decided to turn up, because the rest of this drive was all Ronaldo. They needed to kill the clock to not give Virginia a chance to get the ball back, and he would convert on every 3rd down. And with Miami winning its 5th game this season, that would be 12 straight games won dating back to last season. They were one of the hottest teams in the country, and it was only a matter of time before they would be ranked in the top 5 or even higher. This game is explosive play after explosive play. After being ranked the number 2 team in the country, Miami came into this game to make a statement and prove that they deserve that. And this Hail Mary just before the half was absolutely absurd. The Miami receiver would catch it and lay on the back of the Georgia Tech defender before getting up and scoring. And in the second half, it was no different. Ronaldo was taking over completely, and he was establishing himself as the best back in the ACC and potentially one of the best in the country. We're witnessing firsthand the evolution of Ronaldo going from a receiving back to an all-around back. And of course, he would pick things up right where he left off against Virginia Tech, but this time they were ranked the number 1 team in the country. After that run got called back for clipping, Ronaldo would have to take it into the end zone just a couple plays later anyways. But this 1-5 Virginia Tech team had nothing to lose, and they came into this game game trying to play spoiler against Miami. Ronaldo would be able to get Miami inside the 20-yard line, but he'd be too gassed to finish the drive off. But the Miami offense would be able to score anyways with this touchdown strike from Jake Garcia. The second half started going Virginia Tech's way because after Miami went for it on this fourth down, they wouldn't get it, and Virginia Tech was up in the fourth quarter by 3. Ronaldo would fumble it for the second time this season, and it would be a costly one because it would lead to another 3 points for Virginia Tech. Miami needed a miracle, starting inside their own 20-yard line with just 33 seconds left, and with just 6 seconds left, Miami would throw this Hail Mary, but unfortunately it would get dropped in the end zone. However, there was still time on the clock, and they would go back to the exact same play. This time it would get completed to avoid the upset, and CR7 would finish with a 100-100 game. This was the game of the year. A rivalry game against Florida State meant everything, and after Miami had finished the last season with 7 straight wins and started this season off with 7 straight wins, they were on a 14-game winning streak. However, just because they were the #1 team in the country, that didn't mean that Florida State was going to lay down. In fact, they were playing on a different level. On 3rd and 7, instead of just settling for a punt, Jake Garcia would try to force this pass that would get intercepted, and Florida State would capitalize. They would take advantage of this field position and run the speed option perfectly, taking the lead and never giving it back. Miami's perfect season was finished, but they still had a chance at making the national championship game as long as they won out and had a little bit of help. And they couldn't dwell too long on that Florida State game because Duke came to play. Miami only scored by a safety and a field goal before this touchdown by Ronaldo, and in the second half, it was time for Ronaldo to turn up. He made that DB shake like a stripper, and he would take it all the way inside the 5-yard line before Miami would punch it in a couple plays later. He told coach, "I'm gonna need them goal line touches, I don't care how tired I am," and the next time they went down there, he would score. But when the backup should have been in the game at this point, Ronaldo would take this carry and hurt his knee, making him questionable again. Miami came into this game against Clemson under the impression that Ronaldo would be limited and barely play for most of this game, but once he got out there, he just couldn't help himself, and he would take over the game in the first quarter. Clemson was historically a tough program, but this year was different, and the fact that this game wasn't in Death Valley made all the difference in the world. Miami would jump out to a 3-touchdown lead before Ronaldo would catch this pass over the middle and get absolutely annihilated. There's about a 0.01% chance that he doesn't have CTE after this game, but he had to get his lick back after that game and rip off this run before finishing with another 100-100 game. I'm not sure how often it snows in North Carolina, but this game looked like a damn blizzard, and by the fourth quarter, North Carolina was up by 10 on Miami. This game was going to ultimately decide who was going to represent the ACC Coastal Division in the championship. Miami beat North Carolina for that honor last season, but it looked like North Carolina was back for vengeance as they were still up by 10 late in the fourth. Miami would be able to score this touchdown to make it a 3-point game, and the defense would force a 3-and-out. This catch looked like it was going to set Miami up for the game-winning touchdown, but they'd have to settle for overtime. And in OT, after North Carolina kicked the field goal, Miami wouldn't settle, and Ronaldo would take in the game winner. Ronaldo was mostly stuffed on the ground, but would finish with another 100-yard receiving game. Back-to-back snow games is absolutely crazy. Miami was not accustomed to this type of weather, but the only thing this weather was going to do for Ronaldo was make the defense look like they were on ice skates. Jake Garcia would throw a check down that would turn into the first touchdown of the game, and Miami was now in control. With the lead, they can continue to feed Ronaldo the rock on the ground, and after finishing last season with less than 200 carries, Ronaldo was definitely on pace for over 200 this season, and that didn't include all the receptions he was getting. He was the most targeted running back in college football, and there was good reason for it, because anytime he got into the open field, you just expected him to pull some type of rabbit out of his hat. And at this point of the season, Donald Chaney was establishing himself as the best backup running back in the country, making Miami's 1-2 punch the most lethal. And after CR7 took another boomstick hit to the head, he laid on the floor frozen like Elsa. Donald Chaney was more than happy to take on the running back load once Ronaldo got knocked out of the game, but a bleeding brain can only stop Ronaldo for so long. He came back in the game because he didn't score a touchdown yet. He wanted to get in on the fun before the ACC championship game, which obviously was the biggest game of the year, but also their toughest opponent. The winner of this game was going to go to the national championship, and this one would end up being an instant classic. Miami would rely on their 1-2 punch of Ronaldo and Chaney, and this explosive backfield will be able to get them into the end zone for the early lead against the Orangemen. However, after missing the extra point, Syracuse would be able to take the lead in the first quarter, but it wouldn't stand for very long as Ronaldo would catch this touchdown pass, and then all hell broke loose when Jake Garcia would get hurt on this pitch to Ronaldo. Even though they got all the way inside the 10-yard line, the backup quarterback would make a grave error and fumble this pitch. Thankfully, Ronaldo was vigilant enough to go and get the ball, but Syracuse can sense a shift in momentum as they would make this stop on 3rd and goal, forcing Miami to a field goal. And they weren't afraid to talk shit to Ronaldo because they could sense that the backup quarterback for Miami was in shambles. With just over a minute left in this game, Syracuse would throw an absolute bomb that would be completed and taken in for the touchdown. Miami needed to get into field goal range, and this catch by Ronaldo would be just close enough to try and attempt this field goal. A 52-yarder to send this game to overtime, and it was good. However, in OT, Ja'Cory Brown, the backup QB, would throw this costly interception, and of course, Syracuse would easily win the ACC championship after that. Ronaldo found out that he finished second in the Heisman voting before the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl against East Carolina. It definitely lingered in his mind that if they had won the ACC championship, he probably would have won the Heisman. East Carolina was more than a formidable opponent, and this game would be a defensive battle as Miami would force this strip sack. Ronaldo would help take Miami down the field in this 2-minute drill, and when it came down to it, Jake Garcia would throw this touchdown strike in the back of the end zone to take the lead before half. But after being up by 7 in the second half, Jake Garcia would throw this costly interception which would lead to an ECU touchdown, and the Wildcat offense that had been successful all season was finally getting stuffed. But with the Fiesta Bowl on the line, Ronaldo would summon all the power in his body like he was Goku summoning a spirit ball. He would take the lead with this incredible run in the fourth quarter, but ECU would tie it back up and he would need to regain the lead again. ECU needed a touchdown to send this game to overtime, and this long completion would definitely help in that effort. I did say this game would come down to defense, and on the very last play of the game with 1 second left on 4th down, the Miami defense would come up big. Just like that, Miami would win back-to-back big-time bowl games. Ronaldo would finish with an incredibly impressive 1,500 yards on the ground and almost 1,000 receiving yards. Let me know in the comments if you think he should return for his senior season. And if you got this far, please subscribe.